right now is Fox News senior strategic analyst and chairman of the Institute for the Study of War. General Jack Keane is with us. General, I don't know how you feel about this. I mean, I feel obviously that it's very concerning that a spy balloon was able to travel our country for a week and take information from our military installations back in real time. The president right there just said that it was unlikely, that the idea that a spy balloon could be a breach is not right. Was he uninformed? Does he not recognize? Or do you think he was just trying to calm people down or mislead us?
Well, I think the reality here is that it certainly was a major breach. The NORAD commander, I think, had a serious mistake in judgment in recommending to the administration that this was not going to be a kinetic attack. In other words, it wasn't weaponized, but it certainly was a major threat, and it should have been shot down before it ever entered the United States by the Aleutian Islands. Let's face it, if the administration gets a replay of this and the same thing happens again, Maria, I guarantee you they will shoot it down. They will not want to suffer the humiliation of what took place with a balloon over the United States. And, I mean, come on, you were reporting accurately at the time. They sat over our missile field in Montana and Wyoming. Why did they stay there? Because they were obviously getting information. And yes, can we get information from satellites? Of course we do. Of course they do. But they sat there because they were monitoring tactical radio nets and getting high-resolution videos that are not as possible with a balloon that stays over a site and can observe that site for hours on end. And if they had defeated the balloon, why didn't the balloon just leave as opposed to continue to go to military sites and stay over them? They were doing that for obvious reasons. They were still getting valuable information, even though the United States knew it was a spy balloon. It was a major breach. There's no walking away from it, and that's a fact.
Yeah, and at the time, the former director of national intelligence came on with me and went through what was public information. And here's what he told us at the time, despite the Biden pushback. Watch this.
From public reporting, without getting into anything classified, that China, for at least 6 years, has been successfully deploying payloads, including drones, from stratospheric balloons. And what's publicly known is that the U.S. military and Department of Defense has a number of projects out there involving stratospheric or stratolight balloons and different types of possible payloads that could be deployed, as you talked about, everything from cicada drones to very small electronic listening devices that could run on solar power and transmit data back interminably.
So that's exactly what happened. Now we have the confirmation. But, General, you've studied this and the CCP's actions for a long time. You were the first person to come on this program and say, we are outmanned, we are outgunned when it comes to the Navy. Talk to us in a broader sense about the threat of communist China and how this has moved a lot faster than many people knew, many people talked about. You knew it, but others did not. Where are we in this fight right now?
Well, this is the most comprehensive threat, I believe, we've ever faced in our history, to include the Soviet Union. And the reason is the Soviet Union had a weak economy and a flawed system. The communist socialist system would eventually collapse into itself, obviously enabled by the United States and NATO. But China has a strong economy. I mean, right now they're recovering from COVID, but everybody knows that they're going to bounce back. And they have demographic issues with production, given their one-China policy. But it's still, they take that economy and they use it in a form of mercantilism and as a predator, particularly among the developing countries of the world. There were 6 African presidents I sat at a dinner table with who were up here, and they were appealing to us for the United States to help them, because China is in all of their countries with money, with assisting them. And why are they doing that? Because they want geopolitical influence, and they want their resources, their minerals, etc. And this is going on all over the world economically. Militarily, they do not match the United States in terms of global power. But in terms of the Indo-Pacific region, they have a military advantage over. Technology-wise, they are leading in some of the most advanced technologies we have in the world today. Somewhere around 15 of those, they are in the lead in, not from stealing it, from developing it. So yes, they seek to dominate the world geopolitically at the expense of the United States. It's a comprehensive threat, and that's what makes it so serious. The good news here, Maria, is despite the fact that the administration is minimizing the threat, saying this is a competition, it's not a competition. This is a confrontation. This is an adversary, and we should not minimize it. We should emphasize it. But the American people get it. Over 70% of them believe that China is the most significant threat we're facing, and that consensus is growing. That is good news.
Yep. That's the good news that we all get it. Unfortunately, if there was ever a time that we very much need strong leadership in the White House for America, it is right now, with these threats increasing. By the way, Finland formally joined NATO, becoming the 31st member of the alliance in response to Russia warning yesterday. It plans to beef up its defenses near the border with Finland, General. Is this another threat we need to focus on in terms of what Russia does now?
No, this is a major defeat strategically for Russia. Russia did not anticipate this. Not only did they think they could take Ukraine in a couple of weeks, and the United States and NATO would not react to it, excuse me. Here's what NATO has reacted to it and is stronger, and now Finland and likely Sweden to follow. And this truly matters. The vulnerable states,
wow, that's good.
The Baltic states, small countries, small militaries, are right up there in the Baltic Sea where Finland and Sweden are. This is significant because it starts to shore up NATO's vulnerability in the area. And by the way, those three countries, the Baltic states and Poland, provide as a percentage of GDP more support than the United States as a percentage of GDP to Ukraine. Why are they doing that? Because they know they're next. And this is critical that Finland is now a part of NATO. And they bring to the table a military that has the will to fight and it has the capacity to fight, and an over 800-mile border with Russia. Major change in strengthening NATO today when that flag is waved.
Really important point, and no wonder the president of Poland is meeting with Zelensky. General, always a pleasure. Thanks very much, sir. Good to see you.